All right, let's get into some Philadelphia Eagles talk, because there's a lot going on with this team as they wrap up the preseason and get ready for what promises to be another wild ride of a regular season. The last tune-up before the games really count comes against the New York Jets, and while on paper it is just another exhibition, in reality there are jobs on the line, roster spots at stake, and plenty of storylines that Eagles fans are locked into right now. Whenever you get to this point in August, the roster questions and the future of certain players dominate the conversation. So it is the perfect time to dig into what the team looks like, who has stood out, who is fighting for a chance, and what decisions might be made in the coming days. The good thing about this part of the calendar is that we can just settle in and talk Eagles football in a very casual but passionate way, almost like we're sitting around with other fans just bouncing questions back and forth, trying to figure out what this roster is shaping up to be. So let's start with one of the names that has quietly made some noise during camp and has people asking about him, and that is Smilemont. You do not hear his name pop up constantly in the headlines, but when you go back and watch the film, especially that preseason opener against Cincinnati, you can see why the coaching staff has kept him in the mix. He flashed in that game, showed that he can hold his own, and since then he has been sprinkled into reps with the first team here and there. That is not something the coaching staff does by accident. He has also carved out a nice little role on special teams, which for guys who are not locked in starters is often the difference between making the 53-man roster or being let go. The linebacker room has been a bit of a revolving door the last few years, and depth is always critical. So someone like Mon stepping up gives the team options and insurance if injuries hit during the season. He is not going to be a star overnight, but as a depth piece who can also contribute on special teams, he has a solid chance of sticking around. Another big talking point that fans have right now revolves around the injury to Makuba and whether the team should be aggressive and go after a proven veteran like Justin Simmons. When you look at the numbers, Philadelphia is in a unique spot because they actually have the cap space to make a move like that. Not every contender can say the same. Right now, the Eagles have more than $29 million in cap room available, which puts them near the top of the league in flexibility. That opens the door to potential upgrades if the front office feels that a particular position group is too thin. Simmons has history with Vic Fangio, and he has produced at a high level in that scheme before. He also has ties to members of the current coaching staff, and from a locker room standpoint, he is considered one of those players who fits in seamlessly and elevates the culture. The only question really is whether the injury situation at safety is severe enough to justify making that addition. Hamstrings can be tricky. We have seen examples across the league where it is a short absence and others where it lingers for weeks. Philadelphia is already banking on guys like Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown, and behind them you're looking at names like Andre Sam and Tristan McCullum. That is where the concern comes in because the drop-off is pretty steep. Bringing in someone like Simmons does not mean he has to start every game, but knowing you have that kind of veteran presence as a fallback plan could make all the difference when the games matter most. He is still capable. He would not cost a fortune, and you could sleep better at night knowing that your safety room has another proven option. Switching gears, let's address the wide receiver situation because that room has quietly become one of the most fascinating roster battles of camp. Everyone knows that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are untouchable locks, and beyond them, players like Jahan Dotson and John Mechie are also essentially guaranteed spots because of what the front office has invested in them. The real intrigue comes when you start asking how many receivers the team will carry in total. 5 is the baseline number, 6 is very possible, and 7 would be extreme, but not completely impossible depending on how injuries shake out. Darius Cooper has been a name buzzing through training camp. He has consistently looked like the third best wideout on the field, which is saying something when you already have stars like Brown and Smith dominating. Cooper's emergence complicates things because it forces the staff to consider how to balance the roster. You cannot justify cutting him when he has been that good, so someone else's spot could be in jeopardy. At the same time, when you trade for a guy like Mechie, you're not doing that just to stash him on the practice squad. He has to be on the active roster. Dotson is another player you brought in with draft capital, so you expect him to be part of the group as well. That means if Cooper is your wide receiver 3, then Mechie slides into the 4 spot, and guys like Aeneas Smith and Johnny Wilson battle it out for the remaining slots. The injury to Wilson complicates matters because he went down with both knee and ankle issues and had to be carted off the practice field. That opens up the possibility of some roster maneuvering, maybe placing him on short-term injured reserve to free up a spot. These are the tough calls teams have to make in late August. When you look at how this offense operates, the question is not really about whether a third receiver can play, but whether he will consistently see the ball. This team's identity has been built around the superstar duo of Brown and Smith, and it is hard to argue with the results. Brown has been an all-pro caliber player since arriving in Philadelphia, and Smith might be the best second option at wide receiver in the entire league, really more of a 1B to Brown's 1A. Add in Dallas Goedert at tight end, who is one of the top 10 at his position, and you already have 3 mouths to feed in the passing game before even mentioning the running backs. The ground game has also been dominant in recent years. Miles Sanders had a breakout in 2022. DeAndre Swift followed with his own best season in 2023, and then Saquon Barkley came in and won Offensive Player of the Year in 2024. And of course, Jalen Hurts himself is always a threat to tuck it and run, which makes the offense even more dangerous. In that context, the third wide receiver option is realistically the 5th choice in the pecking order. That is why in past years we have not seen huge numbers from that spot, not because of lack of talent, but because the offense funnels through the top weapons. Still, if a guy like Cooper has shown he can create plays, the staff will find ways to sprinkle him into the game plan. Depth is vital, and you never know when injuries could change the entire structure of the offense. Having someone ready to step up is the difference between staying explosive or falling flat. As far as potential trade chips, the team has some flexibility. The cornerback room is crowded, with young players like Khalil Ringo, Adoree Jackson, Eli Ricks, and now Bennett all in the mix. If the staff feels comfortable with Bennett or someone else emerging, that could make another corner expendable. Wide receiver is another area where they could deal from strength, especially if they believe Cooper is a lock and want to clear some space. Names like Dotson, Aeneas Smith, or even a healthy Johnny Wilson could become trade candidates. The offensive line has depth as well, although some of those backups have not exactly shined during the preseason, which might make the front office a little hesitant to thin that group out. But with Howie, you never know. He is always trying to maximize value, and if he can get a return that strengthens the roster in another area, he's going to explore it. As we continue to break down the Eagles and look at the bigger picture, it is impossible not to notice how every decision, every roster move, and every practice rep carries weight at this stage of the year. The preseason may be winding down, but for the coaching staff and the front office, this is the time when the fine details become crucial. Each player fighting for a spot knows that a single misstep can change their trajectory, while those who have secured their roles are constantly reminding the staff why they belong on this roster. The balance between veterans, emerging talent, and depth is a delicate one, and Philadelphia is a team that knows exactly how to walk that tightrope. With the Jets game serving as the final chance to evaluate players in live-action scenarios, every snap counts, every catch matters, and every defensive assignment is scrutinized. It's not just about winning a preseason contest. It's about seeing how players perform when it actually matters, how they respond under pressure, and who steps up when the unexpected happens. The wide receiver room continues to be a focal point because, despite having undeniable stars, the team must account for the rest of the depth chart. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are obviously untouchable as the cornerstone of the passing attack, but beyond them, the mix of Jahan Dotson, John Mechie, Darius Cooper, Aeneas Smith, and Johnny Wilson provides both opportunity and uncertainty. The injury to Wilson complicated matters, forcing the staff to consider creative ways to maintain flexibility while preserving talent. The possibility of using injured reserve strategically to free up a roster spot is real, and it shows just how nuanced the final roster decisions can be. Cooper's role is particularly interesting because he has shown flashes of being a legitimate playmaker. In a system that funnels most of the opportunities to elite targets, getting production from the third wide receiver spot can change the dynamic of the offense. Finding ways to involve Cooper without disrupting the rhythm of the top 2 receivers is both a challenge and an opportunity, especially considering how well-rounded the Eagles' offensive game has become in recent years. The coaching staff must balance production, depth, and injury insurance all at once, which is why every preseason snap is more important than it might appear to casual fans. Turning to the defensive side of the ball, the secondary remains a hot topic because of the injuries and the ongoing evaluation of depth. The question of whether to pursue a player like Justin Simmons hinges not only on available cap space, but on immediate need and long-term planning. Philadelphia has the resources to bring in a player of his caliber without jeopardizing financial flexibility, and Simmons' familiarity with the coaching staff and defensive schemes makes him an attractive candidate. The nuances of safety play, particularly in a system that demands both physicality and intellectual understanding, mean that adding a player who can seamlessly fit into multiple roles is valuable. Even if he is not starting right away, having someone with a skill set as a backup provides insurance that is difficult to quantify but crucial when the season begins. The NFL is an unpredictable league. Injuries can strike at any moment, and the ability to plug in a competent veteran without hesitation can be the difference between winning and losing a game that counts toward the playoff picture. Trade considerations also remain a compelling angle for Philadelphia. Howie Roseman's history proves that he is not afraid to make bold moves, even late in the preseason. Whether it is to strengthen a position group, add depth, or capitalize on an opportunity in the market, his track record shows a pattern of calculated risks that have consistently improved the roster. Past August moves, such as acquiring Jacorian Bennett and John Mechie, demonstrate his willingness to be aggressive, and fans know that more could be coming. Beyond the obvious additions, Roseman also evaluates the potential for exchanging from positions of depth, which might include corners, wide receivers, or even offensive line backups. The front office must weigh talent, positional needs, and potential return when considering trades, and this kind of proactive approach is part of what keeps Philadelphia consistently competitive. The balance between retaining depth and making impactful trades is delicate, but is one that the Eagles have navigated effectively in recent seasons. In addition to trades, the focus on player development and evaluation cannot be understated. Young players in camp are constantly under the microscope, not only for their on-field performance, but also for how they adapt to the system, respond to coaching, and integrate into the team culture. The mental aspect of the game is just as important as physical skill, and the Eagles have emphasized building a locker room that values accountability, resilience, and teamwork. This cultural approach ensures that when the lights are brightest, players understand their roles, execute under pressure, and make the right decisions. The combination of veteran leadership and emerging talent creates an environment where competition drives improvement, and every practice, meeting, and drill contributes to the overall readiness of the team. Looking ahead, the challenge for Philadelphia will be maintaining consistency across all three phases: offense, defense, and special teams. The running game continues to be a core strength, with players who have proven they can dominate on the ground and force defenses to account for multiple threats. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith provide the explosive playmaking ability at wide receiver, while tight end Dallas Goedert remains a reliable and dynamic target. On defense, the secondary and linebacker groups must balance aggression with precision, ensuring that assignments are executed correctly while still generating turnovers and pressure. Special teams, often overlooked, can swing field position and provide hidden advantages that influence game outcomes. The coaching staff must orchestrate all these elements seamlessly, which is why evaluation during this final preseason game is so critical. Every snap is a test, every matchup is meaningful, and every decision made now sets the tone for the season ahead. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Josh Sweat's recent statements have stirred a wave of speculation around the NFL, particularly among fans of the Philadelphia Eagles who remember his impactful performances on the defensive line. In a candid and somewhat surprising revelation, Sweat admitted he regrets leaving the Eagles, a franchise where he spent some of the most productive years of his career. His departure had initially been framed as a natural next step, a chance to explore new opportunities and perhaps chase bigger contracts or fresh challenges. But his tone now suggests a more emotional undercurrent to the move. Insiders close to the situation have hinted that Sweat underestimated the comfort and familiarity he enjoyed in Philadelphia, where coaches, teammates, and fans collectively embraced his aggressive style of play. The regret he has voiced is sparking conversations about whether this feeling could evolve into a push for reconciliation, or if it is simply a public acknowledgement of how much the Eagles shaped his identity as a player. What makes the story compelling is not only his professional output, but the honesty in admitting that some decisions, even those made with confidence, can later feel like missteps once distance allows for reflection. Behind the scenes, whispers indicate that Sweat's departure from the Eagles was not as smooth as the public statements once suggested. While both parties maintained a respectful tone at the time, there have been reports that negotiations grew tense in the final stages, with differences over contract length and role assurances creating a silent rift. Sweat, known for his physicality and relentless motor on the field, may have been frustrated by the perception that the Eagles were unwilling to fully commit to him as a central piece of their defensive scheme. Yet now, with time to process and reassess, Sweat seems to recognize that the system in Philadelphia uniquely complemented his skills, allowing him to flourish in ways he may not have fully appreciated then. Rumors among league insiders suggest that his current environment lacks the chemistry and trust he once had in the Eagles' locker room, leading to a sense of longing for what was lost. His public regret has left many analysts questioning whether his departure was less about ambition and more about miscommunication, and whether the door could realistically reopen for a return. For fans of the Eagles, Sweat's words have been both validating and bittersweet. Supporters who watched him rise as a force on the defensive front have long argued that the team should have done more to keep him, pointing to his consistency in generating pressure and disrupting opposing quarterbacks. His candid regret now adds fuel to the belief that Philadelphia remains a special place for defensive talent, and that players often realize too late the value of playing in such a passionate football city. Social media has exploded with speculation, with some fans calling for a reunion and others warning that nostalgia should not dictate future roster moves. The Eagles themselves remain quiet on the matter, perhaps unwilling to publicly comment on a player who is no longer part of the roster, yet the silence only deepens the intrigue. The fan base is left to imagine scenarios in which Sweat dons midnight green once again, while at the same time grappling with the reality that regret does not always translate into second chances in the harsh business of professional football. The emotional layer to his statement has reminded many that careers are shaped as much by relationships as by statistics. Around the league, executives and players alike are watching this story unfold with interest because it highlights the delicate balance between loyalty and opportunity in professional sports. Sweat's admission has sparked discussions in front offices about the importance of fit versus money, about how intangible factors such as culture and locker room dynamics often outweigh the numerical figures on a contract. Teammates who once shared the defensive line with him are said to be privately supportive, understanding how difficult it is to find another environment as tight-knit as Philadelphia's. Former coaches, too, may feel vindicated by his reflection, since they had long advocated for his importance within the system. Analysts caution, however, that regret is a common theme among athletes who step away from stable situations in pursuit of growth, only to discover that not every team culture offers the same support. In Sweat's case, his openness to discuss it publicly makes the rumor mill churn even louder, as people wonder whether this is a precursor to lobbying for a trade or simply an emotional outpouring from a player missing a home he once took for granted. It is a reminder that the NFL, for all its toughness, is still deeply human. As the whispers grow, one question dominates conversations. Could Josh Sweat ever find his way back to the Eagles? While the logistics appear complicated, contracts, salary cap, and organizational priorities all stand in the way. There is no denying that his statement has sparked imaginations. Fans envisioning his return see it as both a strategic and symbolic victory, restoring not just a talented defender, but also a familiar face who understands what it means to play in Philadelphia. Yet reality tempers that dream, as the Eagles' front office is known for calculated decision-making and rarely indulges in sentimental moves. Still, in a league where narratives drive headlines as much as on-field results, Sweat's regret has already become one of the most talked-about subplots of the offseason. Even if no reunion occurs, his honesty has given fans a rare glimpse into the emotional complexities athletes face when making career decisions. The sense of unfinished business now hangs in the air, and for every rumor that surfaces, the story of Josh Sweat serves as a powerful reminder that leaving a place where one feels truly at home can sometimes become the hardest part of an athlete's journey, no matter how bright the opportunities seemed at first. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.